If you wish to improve your kneading, here's my 5 tips for a high hydration kneading. Hi, I'm Sergio. I'm a professional pizza trainer from Italy based in France. And in this video, I want to share with you some practical tips to make sure you succeed in your high hydration kneading. When we increase the hydration of our dough, the kneading process has different challenges. It's clear that we cannot use the same kneading methodology when we're preparing a 60% hydration dough, for example, compared to high hydration one. Let me also clarify here at this stage of the video what I mean by high hydration dough. A classification of the different hydration level for a dough doesn't exist today. So here, when I say high hydration, I refer to any pizza dough that has an hydration of above 75%. Let's go now to the lab to talk about these 5 tips. The 5 tips you'll see in this video will help you achieve a well-structured dough like you see right now. The objective is to avoid instead a dough like this one. The dough here is not structured at all and it's rather loose in the spiral mixer, sign that the gluten is not really well formed. On top of that, the dough is too hot at the end of the process, around 28 degrees, and overall the gluten lacks elasticity and tenacity. After seeing what we want to avoid, let's talk about those 5 tips. And while I share them with you, in the background you will see the kneading process of a contemporary Neapolitan pizza, hydrated at 75%. The first tip regards the spiral mixer. The tip is to use a spiral mixer that is capable of working at least 180 to 200 rounds per minute. The rounds per minute or RPM of a spiral mixer is an important specification to take into account, as it is an indication of how much energy we can transfer to our dough. The higher the RPM spec of a spiral mixer, the higher the quantity of energy we can transfer to the dough. And so, since we're realizing a dough with high hydration, our dough will require a higher amount of energy to form its gluten, compared to a dough that is hydrated, for example, at 58 or 60%. So the ideal spiral mixer for this type of dough will have 2 speeds, with the first speed around 100 to 120 RPM and the second speed capable of going up to 200 RPM. Tip number 2 is to choose the right flour for your hydration. In order to have our dough to absorb all the hydration, we need a good spiral mixer, of course, as we said earlier, but also a flour that is capable of absorbing all that water. The parameter that gives us a good idea of the absorption capability of the flour is generally the W index or strength of the flour. In fact, a flour with a stronger W index will absorb water more easily, and overall as well more water, allowing us to achieve a high hydration. When we want to work with hydration from 70 up to 80-85%, we need the flour with the W index of at least 300-320. Another parameter that will impact the absorption is the ash content of a flour. We will discuss this parameter in a separate video, but just so you know, the higher the ash content of the flour, the higher its absorption capability. Tip number 3 is to keep your dough temperature under control. In case you haven't noticed, your dough increases its temperature during kneading. The higher the dough temperature, the more relaxed and loosened it will be in the mixer, impacting the overall kneading process. So especially in the beginning of the kneading, you want to make sure that your dough temperature is low enough so that by the time you get at the end of kneading, your dough is still at an acceptable temperature range of 22 to 26 degrees Celsius. You will need to manage correctly the water and the flour temperature right at the beginning of your kneading so that you don't start too hot. Getting too hot, especially in the final steps of the kneading, makes the spiral mixer work more difficult, and it will be more difficult to get to a good elasticity of your gluten. Tip number 4 is to add the second part of the water slowly. For a high hydration dough, we generally split the water in 2. The first part is added right at the beginning, the rest after the salt. If the first part of the water can be added all at once at the beginning of kneading, it's best to add the second part of the water slowly. That will help the water absorption by the gluten, but above all, it will keep the dough compacted and will avoid the dough to lose its structure. Inevitably, kneading will be more effective and quicker. Tip number 5 is to not be afraid to knead and work your dough. There is a common belief that working too much the dough can impact negatively the elastic properties of the dough. Even though this is true from a technical point of view, you should know that this scenario happens only after a long kneading process. I've personally tested that and I saw that it's only after 40 minutes of kneading at high speed that the kneading worsened the elastic properties of the gluten. So really don't worry too much about kneading time in regards to the elastic properties of the gluten. And to be honest with you, in my experience of pizza trainer, a more common situation is that people don't knead enough and the dough will actually lack elasticity and tenacity. So I hope these 5 tips will help you improve your kneading for a high hydration dough. And just to be complete in this video, let me show you the final result after about 15 minutes of kneading. When we get to the end of the kneading process, the dough should always have this nice and smooth texture with this elastic feel at the visual. Temperature wise, we're perfect, 25 degrees, just in the right range. The last thing I want to do is to check the texture of the gluten. You should feel the same elastic feeling when touching the dough. You basically want to be able to make an actual veil with your gluten, smooth and extensible. I'm able to get it out of the spiral mixer quite easily as well. And on the working table, it still shows this elasticity. These are all the signs of a well-kneaded dough. And if you wish to get to this result, check out my professional pizza trainer. The link is just here in the description. And with that, thanks for watching. Ciao e buona pizza!